Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Testing. Hope my voice is clear. Let's see if it is. I'm gonna switch on the camera now. And yep, here I am. Yeah. Oh my god, I'm so blurry and oh, I look like an angel. I'm emitting like an angel. No, I'm kidding. Wow. All right. Yeah, I'm gonna have to do something about the quality of my camera. I know that the quality hasn't been the best. Okay, but I don't think I have a choice here. So for now, you're going to just have to bear with it. And yeah, don't worry about the camera. I think what's important is the message, not how I look on screen. Let me see if I can adjust this a bit. Yeah, right. So yes, assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers and sisters in Islam. Welcome to another live stream of my Bible studies in light of the Quran, episode 3. All right, so this is the third episode that in this series that I've been doing for the past several weeks now, I guess. Yeah, so you can watch the last two episodes in this series on my channel. So today we'll be covering the story of Noah, or Nuh alayhi salam, as he is known in the Quran, in Islamic tradition. So I'm going to take a yep. All right. So I found the so we will be studying this book, right, the Bible and Islamic Perspective, by J.R. Crook. So this is his first volume, from the creation to the flood. As you can see, these are basically the main topical indexes in this work. Okay, of course there are several more volumes which we will go through eventually, but this is the first of many to come, I hope. Right. So today we'll be covering. We have already covered the creation, and we have covered Adam and Eve. Well, basically these three, right? Adam and Eve, the Garden of Eden, and the fall. And then we have also covered Cain and Abel, right? Enoch and Idris, I touched on it briefly. We will skip Harut and Marut, okay, because it's not in the Bible, and we go straight to Noah and the flood, and most probably Noah's sons as well. Okay, so then I think this episode could finish up on this work, okay, on this particular volume, I mean, and then we can jump to the next volume, inshallah. So the live stream has been running for about 8 minutes now. Wow, and there are two viewers watching this live stream, which I'm totally fine with, because I kind of announced this at a very impromptu moment. Okay, although this time I didn't immediately come on to the live stream. Obviously, I gave it some time so that people are aware that there is a live stream going on. But I don't really care whether there are many people or not. That's not the point. Okay, because I mean you can always play the video. Okay, once it's even when it's over. So before we continue, of course, I will play my my intro. So cue in intro. Yeah. Right. So we are back again. Thank you very much for being patient with me. As I know, I've been delaying this series. Well, that's because I have been preoccupied with work. I'll show you what I've been doing for the past several weeks now. Okay. Well, several days actually, not several weeks. Let's see now. I'm going to show you this. Yeah, so this is my website. Okay. So yeah, this is Bismika Ohuma. All right, this is the main website. Yeah, so this is the main website with all the links. I've managed to SEO. I've done some SEO for the page. Okay, so yeah, don't tell David Wood and Sam Shamoon. I've added some links on the page, and yeah, look at this little shithead here. And then yeah, I've been trying my best to add some content to the page so that it's SEO properly. And yeah, so I've been doing some. I've been tweaking some of my legacy pages. So here we go. So this is one of them. Okay, I don't have to tell you who this guy is. So as you can see, there's the version from 2005, and then there's a version from 2003. I added this content, and then yeah, this is one of the latest screenshots that I managed to grab, and then yes, I've managed to create this index section for the article. So these are features which are optimized for SEO, right? So as you can see, the landing this landing page has actually been improved, has much improvements since the last time I touched it. So there's even an FAQ page now. Okay, and then yes, and then there's also yeah, I'll give you a sneak peek on the back end. So this is an article that I'm working on now. This is the title, so obviously you should know what this is about, and this is the back end. This is the interface. This is all the SEO meta information and stats. Okay, only someone who has a web development background would understand what this is about. So I've been playing around with the CSS as well. So these are all a sneak peek uh into my website, Bismika Awahuma. Oh, there's a brother who greeting uh, us here. So Walaikum salam warahmatullah, brother. Thank you very much for coming on to the stream. And I hope that you stay around for as long as I am around. It is, and you won't get bored with my monotonous voice. So okay, I'm going to share the screen for Genesis 6, and we're going to begin the show. All right. So this is Genesis 6. The last time this series happened in episode 2, I've touched from Genesis 4 to Genesis 6, which covered the story of Adam's sons, Adam alayhi salam's sons, Cain and Abel, or Qabil and Habil in the Islamic tradition. And we've stopped at this verse here, right? Because I didn't want to continue up until Noah, right? Noah alayhi salam. So this is the story of Noah. So let's continue from Genesis 6, uh, verse 9 onwards. So it begins with, this is the account of Noah and his family. So Noah in Islam is known as Nuh alayhi salam. Okay, so I'm going to read a bit from this work, okay, to introduce him. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, look at this. Genesis 6, verse 9. Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. Okay, look at this verse carefully, right? Blameless and righteous, meaning he was without sin, right? If Noah was without sin, if Noah was a righteous man, he was blameless, he was without sin, meaning he was not sinful. Why didn't God sacrifice him at the cross during this time? I mean, instead of waiting thousands of years for Jesus to appear or to reincarnate as a God man by the name of Jesus in first century Palestine, why didn't he just simply sacrifice Noah? He didn't even need to come down onto earth as a man. Okay, because it clearly says here, Noah was a righteous man. Okay, blameless among the people of his time. So if Noah was righteous, if Noah was blameless, it means he was without sin. And if Noah is without sin, then obviously, according to Christian theology, he is the perfect sacrifice to be given to God in order to, expiate the sins of man. Okay, because the gap between Adam and Noah isn't that far, isn't too far. Okay, I mean, if you wait thousands of years until Jesus arrived, that would be a very long time, because between the time of Adam, right, until Jesus, what happens to the salvation of the people between these time periods? However, if it happened during the time of Noah, and if Noah alayhi salam were the one to be sacrificed at the cross, or some means of sacrificial tools, because at this period, in this particular period of time, there was no such thing as a crucifixion. Okay, so if Noah was sacrificed during this time period, wouldn't that save us a lot of trouble, and we don't need to wait? And wouldn't that save God a lot of trouble, and he didn't need to come down to earth as a man? Okay, think about it for a second. Why is it that Christians are so adamant about wanting Jesus to die for their sins? Okay. When the Bible clearly says that Noah was righteous, Noah was blameless among the people of his time. He did, and God did, God didn't even need to come down in the form of a man, because Noah was sinless. Okay. It's either the Bible is wrong, it's either the Bible is actually making up a lie. If Christians want to deny that Noah was righteous and blameless, then it means that the Bible is lying, or is the Christian, or either that, or it is actually Christians who are deluded, or and did not read their own Bible. Because I mean, this is such a clear sentence here. I mean, I don't even need to elaborate any further. Okay. And then yeah, so it says here Noah has three sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Okay. Now the earth was corrupt in God's sight and was full of violence. God saw how corrupt the earth had become, for all the people on earth had corrupted their ways. So God said to Noah, I'm going to put an end to all people, for the earth is filled with violence because of them. I am surely going to destroy both them and the earth. And then it goes on to talk about the details of the ark. So make yourself an ark, make rooms in it, coat it with blah blah. This is how you are to build it. The ark is to be blah 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 long, blah 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 wide, blah 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 high. Make a roof for it, put a door into it. I'm going to bring flood waters on the earth to destroy all life under the heavens. Every creature that has the breath of life in it, everything on earth will perish. But I will establish my covenant with you, and you will enter the ark, you and your sons and your wife and your sons' wives with you. You are to bring into the ark two of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. Two of every kind of bird, of every kind of animal, and of every kind of creature that moves along the ground will come to you to be kept alive. You are to take every kind of food that is to be eaten and store it away as food for you and for them. And then verse 22, Noah did everything just as God commanded him. So now let's compare this story of Noah, or Nuh alayhi salam, with that of the Quran. So for that, I will be reading this book, right? So yeah, so Dr. J.R. Cruz says, again and again, we read in the Quran of Noah's warning to his people to repent and to believe, lest doom overtake them. It is only when the situation is hopeless that the prophet calls the wrath of God down upon the people. The destruction of mankind, save for a remnant, ensues. So the difference between the story of the of this particular section in the Bible without the Quran is that prior to this event, prior to Noah, or to Nuh alayhi salam, being commanded by God to build this special ark for him and his family, Noah, or Nuh alayhi salam, in the Quran was preaching to his people as a prophet, obviously, to beseech them, to warn them, to advise them, to instruct them to come to God Almighty, to come to the worship of the one true God of course Abraham did not exist at this time, of Adam alayhi salam, or the one true God, who what is the creator of the universe. Okay, so this, of course, obviously Noah alayhi salam lived before Abraham alayhi salam, right? So I won't in this regard, I can't use the phrase one true God of Abraham. So I'll just say the one true God of Adam, and the one true creator of everything, right? Just to make it clear. So so now let me continue reading this. Um, the reason for the emphasis on the story of Noah in the Quran is plain. Noah prefigures the Prophet of Islam as a warner of possible impending doom. So yes, you do see this in with regard to the story of Noah or Nuh alayhi salam in the Quran. In the case of Noah, the doom was temporal, the physical destruction of mankind in this world. In the case of the Prophet, the predicted doom is that of the judgment day and the punishment of souls rather than bodies, as well as the social disaster that irreligion breeds in this world. The incredulity and mockery with which a section of the inhabitants of the Hejaz, here it's talking about the pagan Arab Quraysh who were against the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, greeted the message of Muhammad is prefigured in the incredulity and mockery with which Noah was received by his people. Although the commentators never lost sight of the main point of the story of Noah, the later accretions and embellishments tended to concentrate on the more spectacular elements of his story. Okay, I'm going to continue reading this. According to the version, oh, sorry. According to the version of Surah Badi, Noah was also called Samak or Samak, the son of Lamak or Lamech, the first transcriber of the religious law after Idris or Enoch, and the prophet with the longest life. When 50 years old, Noah received his first revelation and was among his people 950 years, calling them to God, but only 80 of them accepted his message. Okay. In Surah Badi's chronology, after receiving the revelation, Noah preached for 950 years and lived for either 200 or 400 years after the flood, thus reaching the age of 1200 or 1400, depending upon which tradition is accepted. Okay. The time between Noah's prayer and the flood was either a century or, according to other traditions, 40 years. Surah Badi avers that Noah was the mildest of the prophets, enduring the beatings and abuse the people gave him. Since he lived so long, the people would warn their children against warn their children against him, generation to generation. In the Quran, most of the references to Noah's pre-flood activities are concentrated upon his message of warning and the exchanges he had with his disbelieving audience. So, as I mentioned earlier, the Quran actually stresses upon the message of Noah, the preaching of Noah before the flood, prior to the flood, pre-flood. Okay, so if you look at the at Genesis, at this particular chapter, especially, I mean, the story of Noah in the Bible, especially, you will find that it actually focuses more on the destruction of the people due to the flood rather than the point of Noah being there in the first place and why the flood happened. Okay, so the Quran takes a different approach. It talks about how Noah approached his people, how he tried to bring them to God, but only a few accepted for over a duration of similar to the Bible, 900 plus years. Okay, the Quran is not specific on that, but it did say that Noah preached to his people for over 900 years. It does mention that this. It doesn't actually specify his age, but you can have a rough idea of how old Noah was, okay, back then. If the Quran also says that Noah was preaching to his people for over 900 plus years, okay. So yeah, you will find that in the Quran the emphasis is always on the message of of warning, of telling the people, a particular prophet's tribe or people to come to God. So the Quran always stresses on the message of Tawheed. This is something you don't really find in the Bible much. Okay. I mean, the Bible talks about sensationalist stories, and we will go through all this throughout this series, inshallah. We will see how the Bible focuses on the more fantastical elements of a particular prophet's life and mission rather than focusing on the message itself. I mean, what's the point of Noah's people being destroyed uh if nothing is mentioned? What did they do wrong to him? It's not even really mentioned here. I mean, just say it just says that Noah was righteous, blameless among the people, and then it says that the earth was corrupt, and God saw how corrupt the earth had become, and then suddenly God said to Noah that he's going to kill everyone in an act of genocidal intent. God Almighty was going to kill everyone. Simply this, without any explanation or any justification as to why would God decide this. Whereas in the Quran you will find that there is justification for this. Why the flood happened, the Quran actually answers this question. So you will find that you know uh you will find that the Quran actually explains why the story of why the flood had to happen. Okay, it's very interesting, right? Okay, I'm going to read this brother's message. Brother, I need to go. Can I watch the stream? I said, yes, you can. You can, Aki. So yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, you can leave now, Aki. No worries. I'm not going to hold you back. Don't worry. If you have something to do, please uh, attend to your affairs and don't worry about me. This video will be here even when you come back. Okay, even if this live stream ends, this video will still be here, inshallah. Right? So yeah, don't worry about it. I'm going to wait before I okay, give me a break. Something got stuck in my throat again. I'm going to share the link of this live stream to some people. Let me see if I can do that. Okay, let me share the link here. Okay. Yeah, because I need to get the crowd. Nah, I don't really care about crowds at this juncture. It's not important to me. Okay. Okay, replying to the brother. Jazakallah khair, Aki. Brother, please keep on the grind. Yes, wa yakum, Aki. Yes, no worries. So this video will be around even if you're not here. Okay, and you can come back anytime you want. Okay. So let's continue. In the Quran, most of the references to Noah's pre-flood activities are concentrated upon his message of warning and the exchanges he had with his disbelieving audience. When the situation was plainly hopeless, Noah prayed to God for relief. Oh my Lord, help me, for that they cry me lies. And this is in Quran Surah 23, verse 25. And then the next verse. And so Noah called upon his Lord, saying, I am vanquished. Do thou succor me. Quran Surah 54, verse 10. And then if you read Surah Nuh, by the way, there's a whole surah a whole chapter in the Quran named after Noah. It's called Surah Nuh, right? So this is this surah is number 71, verses 5 to 28. So this is a longer version of the prayers in Quran Surah 23, verse 25, and Quran Surah 54, verse 10. Okay. The only Quranic basis for Surah Badi's chronology is, indeed, we sent Noah to his people, and he tarried among them 1,000 years, all but 50. So the flood seized them while they were evildoers. And this is in Quran, Surah 29, verse 14. If the span of his life is intended, this is in agreement with Genesis chapter 9, verse 29. As usual, the chronology is from P, the priestly account of the Old Testament. The Muslim commentators have generally interpreted this to mean that Noah was 950 years old when the flood came. However, Tabari records traditions supporting a different chronology. On the authority of Ibn Abbas, Noah was 480 years old when he received his commission to preach. After warning the people for 120 years, the flood came and he lived 350 years after the flood, a total of 950. In another tradition, on the authority of Ibn Ishaq, Noah was 950 years old when he died. The Quranic verse would appear to lend itself to either interpretation. So, my conclusion is that it doesn't really matter how long Noah lived. All we need to know is that he lived for a long time. His people did not want to listen to his message. He was abused for this, and he was derided. Although he spent a long time, 900 plus years, in order to preach to his people, none of them listened to him. So in the end, God, uh, you know, uh, punished them for their sins. So hence the flood. Okay. This is already explained in the Quran, and the Bible does not tell the reasons why. If you notice, okay. Now let's talk about the biblical version of the story. So I'm going to read this again. The biblical version of the story of Noah is found in Genesis chapter 6 to 9. So we're going to cover these three chapters, all right? The story opens with the reason for the flood, the evil and corruption of mankind. The first four verses of chapter 6 contain ancient material about the sons of God cohabiting with human women and producing the race of giants, the Nephilim, already noted above. These were the mighty men that were of old, the men renowned. So, okay, I'll skip this part, okay, because I think I did mention about the Nephilim in my previous series. Okay, let me see now. Okay, yeah, the first Yahweh's, sorry, yeah, the first, sorry, let me see now. Wait, sorry, I'm going to have to read. Okay. Okay, this is about the Nephilim. The material doubtless was preserved by the original Yahwehs, writing about 1000 BCE, who knew nothing of the tradition of the flood. Its preservation a century later by the second Yahwehs, who introduced the first version of Noah and the flood, shows that he saw the passage in a different light. The sins of the angels mixing with mankind was the cause of the corruption in the earth, as we have seen in the development of the legend of the fallen angels cited in Harut and Marut, which he did discuss this, but I purposely skipped because I didn't think that it was necessary anyway to talk about it. The first Yahweh saw nothing wrong in this. The second saw in it the reason for the punishment of the flood. The biblical verse cited above is immediately followed by an addition by the second Yahweh. The Lord saw that the wickedness of man was great in the earth, and that every imagination of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually. And so the Lord was sorry that he made man on earth, and it grieved him in his heart. But God, so this is in Genesis 5 to 6. Now the question is, God could feel grief. God was sorry that he made man on earth. Okay, this is a very anthropomorphic descriptions of God. Okay, but Noah found favor in the eyes of the Lord. Genesis 6:8. Okay, so this is in Genesis 6:8, as you can see. It's at the top here. Okay, so this is yeah. Oh, okay. Noah is further described by P as a righteous man, blameless in his generation. Noah walked with God. So this is the second Yahweh's account. Okay, this is the one. Yeah, so righteous man, blameless among the people of his time, and he walked faithfully with God. So this is Yeah, this is the second. This is sorry. This is P, right? This is P. So this is the priestly writers. Okay, so you have to keep in mind that in the Old Testament, especially in Genesis, there are two sources. So there's the Yahweh's account and the priestly account. So the Yahweh's account is known as J, and the priestly account is known as P. So from this in this first part here, this was written by J, and from this part onwards, it was written by P. Okay, as you can see, there's a slight subtle but obvious style of writing between the two. Okay, which obviously the editors of the Old Testament is trying to rationalize. Okay, and then I'm going to continue this. Okay, this is the P section, right? In addition, we have the P's version of God's decision to destroy mankind. And then it reads, and then it quotes Genesis chapter 6, verses 11 to 13. So this is the verses, right? Yeah, I think I've already read this, so I'm not going to read it again. Okay. Okay, so yeah. We have seen how this evil and corruption is associated, at least in part, with the story of the angels or sons of gods coming to earth and mixing with mankind. This element, with its mythological and politics implications, is absent from the Quran. Both in the Quran and in Surah Badi, we have the proximate cause for the punishment of the flood associated with idolatry. In the Quran, the worship of gods of the Arabian pantheon is specifically mentioned in Surah 71 or chapter 71, verse 23. Okay. In Surah Badi's commentary, this verse led to a statement about the origin of idol worship. So, in Surah Badi's view, in the days of Adam, all were believers except the descendants of Cain. When Adam died, the Cainites wanted to pay their respects to their ancestor's body, but the others, in question marks, the Sethians, would not permit it. So they made a likeness of Adam and worshipped it to the time of Idris or Enoch. When Idris left, Iblis told mankind that the nobility was in their likeness. So when Idris died, his disciples made a likeness of him. Thus, idols came into existence. And then the book goes on to mention a story in the Jewish midrash. Sorry, but let's skip all this. So basically, what the this section is about is it's basically discussing the origins of idol worship and how some of mankind fell to the idea of idol worship. Okay, so now let's jump to the ark. Make thyself an ark of gopher wood. So Genesis 14. Yeah. So this is the one. Yeah. Here it says cypress, but this translation says gopher wood. I presume it's the same thing, but I don't know. Since this is the Bible we are talking about, might be different. Okay. In Surah Badi, in answer to Noah's prayer, the angel Gabriel came with the seeds of the fig tree and told Noah to plant them. 40 years later, Noah harvested the trees and built the ark from their timber. Okay. The work was done in the site of the mosque of Kufa in Iraq. The ship was blah blah blah. Okay, I'll skip all this part. In the biblical version, P meaning the priestly source, ever concerned with statistics, gives us a detailed description of the construction of the ark. So that is hence where all these details come in. Okay, so I presume this is from P. Okay. Uh, the greater detail of the biblical account seems to have inhibited the usual expensive elaborations of the Jewish tradition. With the construction of the ark, the biblical narrative begins to coincide with its Mesopotamian ancestor. In the preceding section, we have discussed the reasons for God's decision to destroy mankind by means of a universal flood. Both the second Yahwehs and the priestly writers of the Bible agree with the Qur'an and the Islamic traditionalists that the reasons were moral, violence, and iniquity of mankind, which strongly identified with idolatry. In the Bible, this moral corruption was seen in some way connected with the deeds of the race of heroes that were the result of the mixing of human and non-human strains, and therefore connected with the legends of the fallen angels. Okay. On the other hand, the reasons for the flood given in the Mesopotamian stories, which lie behind the biblical narrative, are altogether quite different, and to our way of thinking, rather trivial. Biblical scholars and students of the literature of the ancient Near East agree that the biblical story of the flood is dependent upon the early Mesopotamian myths of the flood contained in the Babylonian epic of Gilgamesh and even earlier Sumerian literature. There is less agreement about the exact nature of the event that gave rise to the legend. It has also been pointed out that the priestly material is, in general, closer to the Mesopotamian originals, while the version of the second Yahwist is somewhat more remote. This is to be expected as the Yahwist, writing at the beginning of the 9th century, probably had not heard the story in its original form, but only after it had been transmitted from Mesopotamia to Palestine by the way of Syria. The post-exilic priestly writer had the benefit of a much closer acquaintance with the story, as he may have been writing in Babylonia. If not, he had almost certainly shared the Babylonian experience in exile. So, basically, what Dr. Jia Kru here is saying is that the story seems to have a lot of similarities with the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, there seems to be some borrowing here involved. Okay, or may perhaps it was Gilgamesh which borrowed the story of Noah. Okay, so you do find it hypocritical of Christians to accuse the Quran of borrowing stories, because I actually recently saw this live stream of a Christian who was repeating some of the stories in the Quran, and then he was using a critical version of a critical text of the Quran, a critical commentary of the Quran. Okay, and the author of this critical commentary was talking about various similarities of the stories in the Quran with that of some apocryphal material. Okay, and then this Christian presenter simply said, "Oh, look at this! This is the evidence of borrowing in the Quran." But this hypocrite doesn't seem to realize that the stories in the Bible itself can be traced to earlier, uh, stories from Babylon and many other places, Persian, etc. Okay, so anyway, the rest of this passage talks about how the story of the ark is similar to the story of Gilgamesh. Okay, uh, and then let me see if I can find any relevant. Okay, I'm going to read. I'm going to continue reading. Okay, so okay, it talks about it talks about apocryphal material. So I don't. It talks about the book of the caves of treasures and the book of Adam and Eve. Okay, so these are two apocryphal works which gives some detail as to the story of the flood, which are not found in the Bible, unsurprisingly so. Okay, and okay. So and it talks about J here. In the biblical accounts of the loading of the ark, there are two differing versions. I'm gonna read this. Okay. In the biblical accounts of the loading of the ark, there are two differing versions. Contradiction. In J, several pairs of clean animals are to be brought aboard, and only one pair of unclean, which is in Genesis chapter 7, verses 2 to 3. And we will look at it. All right. This is keeping with his view of the eternity of the law. P, however, mindful that the distinction between clean and unclean animals must await the revelation of the Mosaic law, simply has Noah take a pair of every living thing, which is in Genesis chapter 6, verses 19 to 20. So let's take a look at that. Okay. So if as you can see, in Genesis 6, uh, 19 to 20, it says that you are to bring into the ark two of all living creatures, male and female, to keep them alive with you. Two of every kind of bird, every kind of animal, every kind of creature that moves along the ground. So nothing is mentioned here about the creatures being clean or unclean, because Moses was not born yet. Okay, it's only centuries later that the Torah will be revealed. Okay, so now this version, okay, in Genesis 7, it says, go into the ark and your whole family, okay? Take with you 7 pairs of every kind of clean animal, a male and his mate, and 1 pair of every kind of unclean animal, a male and his mate, and also 7 pairs of every kind of bird, male and female, and then it goes on to talk about when the flood would occur. So there's a contradiction here. So on one hand, in Genesis 6, we find that Noah was instructed to bring every kind of animal that move, literally any living thing that moves, without any regard as to whether it's clean or unclean. Okay, nothing mentioned here about it being clean or unclean, because and it makes sense, because the Mosaic law did not exist in this era. Okay, not at least not yet. Okay, no such thing as clean and unclean animals. Okay, and suddenly in Genesis 7, you find that God instructed Noah to bring clean animals and unclean, and there's a distinction between the clean animals and the unclean ones. So it makes a distinction between the two. And so which account is correct, which account is accurate? Now that's something which Christians or those who believe in the primacy of the Bible would need to answer. Okay, so there's a contradiction there. Ding ding ding, contradiction. Okay. Now okay. Okay, let me see now. J does not tell us who accompanied Noah, but P has God instruct him to take his son, his wife, and his son's wives, which is in Genesis 6, chapter 18. Chapter 6, verse 18. This would make a total of 8 rather than Surabadi's 80. So Surabadi actually said that there were 80. Okay, so doesn't matter, because those are just traditions. Jewish tradition adds that the animals came of their own accord into the ark, or at the command of God. And then it continues to talk about the epic of Gilgamesh. Okay, so Gilgamesh too was ordered to build an ark to save his people from a great flood as well. Interesting, isn't it? Okay. Mm. And then according to the more anthropomorphic Yahwehs, after Noah and the creatures had boarded the ark, God himself closed the door in Genesis 7, verse 16. Okay, as you can see here. The animals going in were male and female, every living thing, as God has commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. Okay, it's talking about Genesis 7:16. Interestingly enough, the Mesopotamian accounts specifically mention closing the door after the ship is loaded. Although in those versions, the god simply reminds Utnapish, Utnapishtim to close the door after himself. Surabadi adds a couple aetological anecdotes about the origin of the cat and the swine. The people in the ark complained of mice, and Noah was told to put his hand on the back of the lion. The lion promptly sneezed a cat out of his nostrils, which immediately fell upon the annoying mice. Okay, so these are the traditions that are associated with, or the mythology that are associated with the story of Noah, which are not Quranic, by the way. Okay, and then it talks about Bereshit Rabbah. So okay, let's read this chapter 7, right? So this first para here contradicts with the ending of Genesis 6, by the way. Okay, I need to write an article on this, man. I'm going to write an article on this. Okay, and then and Noah did all that the Lord commanded him. Now verse number 6. Noah was 600 years old when the flood waters came on the earth. As Noah and his sons and his wife and his sons' wives entered the ark to escape the waters of the flood, pairs of clean and unclean animals, of birds, and of all creatures that move along the ground, male and female, came to Noah and entered the ark as God had commanded Noah. And after 7 days, the flood waters came on the earth. In the 600th year of Noah's life, on the 17th day of the second month, on that day, all the springs of the great deep burst forth, and the floodgates of the heavens were opened, and the rain fell on the earth 40 days and 40 nights. On that very day, Noah and his sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, together with his wife and the wives of his 3 sons, entered the ark. They had with them every wild animal according to its kind, all livestock according to their kinds, every creature that moves along the ground according to its kind, and every bird according to its kind, everything with wings. Pairs of all creatures that have the breath of life in them came to Noah and entered the ark. The animals going in were male and female of every living thing, as God had commanded Noah. Then the Lord shut him in. For 40 days the flood kept coming on the earth, and as the waters increased, they lifted the ark high above the earth. The waters rose and increased greatly on the earth, and the ark floated on the surface of the water. They rose greatly on the earth, and all the high mountains under the entire heavens were covered. The waters rose and covered the mountains to a deep of more than 15 cubits. Every living thing that moved on land perished. Birds, livestock, wild animals, all the creatures that swarm over the earth, and all mankind. Everything on dry land that had the breath of life in its nostrils died. Every living thing on the face of the earth was wiped out. People and animals and the creatures that move along the ground and the birds were wiped from earth. From the earth, sorry. Only Noah was left and those with him in the ark. The waters flooded the earth for 150 days. So that's quite specific, isn't it? So the first genocide of men by God. Okay. In the Quran, the flood did occur, but it wasn't on a genocidal scale. Basically, it was localized. It was only meant for the people of Noah. So God wanted to punish the people of Noah for the transgressions. Okay, so it's not a grand scale like how. So it wasn't on a grand scale like how the Bible says that the flood was. Okay, I mean literally this is genocide, man. They are killing. I mean, God Almighty, according to the Bible, God Almighty is a genocidal maniac who kills animals and human beings without any real reason, apart from him being displeased with what what is going on earth. Okay, in the Quran, the reasoning is much more rational, and it's obvious that the people of Noah deserved what was coming to them, because Noah preached to them for 950 years, and nobody wanted to listen to him except for a minor few. And because of this transgression by the people of Noah, therefore God, basically showed his justice by punishing the people of Noah with the flood. So it was a localized event in the Quran. Basically, it was specific to a certain group of people, not widespread, not worldwide, like how the Bible says it is. So in this regard, you could say that the Quran, you could say that the Bible was corrected by the Quran. The Quranic narrative of the flood corrects this story of the flood according to the Bible. Okay. So yeah. So the flood in the Quran. So this is Quran chapter 11 verse 40. Until when our command came and the oven boiled. Okay, and then Quran chapter 54 verses 11 to 14. Then we opened the gates of heaven into water torrential, and made the earth gush with fountains, and the waters met for a matter decreed. And we bore him upon a well-planked vessel, well cocked, running before our eyes. So in Surah Badi, the first waters of the flood burst forth from the oven in which Noah's family baked their bread, between the fire and the door. A further elaboration of this is attributed to Ali, in which all the ovens of the world spouted forth water. These waters welling up from the earth would have been sufficient to split the earth. According to Surah Badi, Noah entered the ship on the 10th of Rajab and left it on Ashura 6 months later. Okay. The Quran does not specify the duration of the flood. So this is basically Surah Badi's tafsir. So this is not in the Quran. So we just simply don't bother with the details. Tafsir authors, tafsir commentators, they just simply pick traditions from with regards to the story, and they could be wrong. So there's no impact whatsoever upon the Quran, because a tafsir or commentary is basically the opinion of the reader, of whoever wants to comment on the Quran, and they can be either right or they can be wrong. So in this case, I don't really agree with Surah Badi on this. Okay. In the Bible, God tells Noah that that the rain will last 40 days and 40 nights. Genesis chapter 7 verse 4. So this is the one. 7 days from now, I will send, for 40 days and 40 nights. Okay. And this is from the J account. Okay, the Yahweh's account. In the 600th year of Noah's life, in the second month, on the 17th day of the month, on that day, all the fountains of the great deep burst forth, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell upon the earth 40 days and 40 nights. So this is from the P account, Genesis chapter 7, verses 11 to 12. So we compare this verse here, verse number 4, to that of verse 11 to 12. There's a difference. Okay. This is something I can write about too in my, my website. Okay. And then another P account. And the waters prevailed so mightily that all the high mountains under the whole heaven were covered. The waters prevailed above the mountains, covering them 15 cubits deep. And all flesh died that moved upon the earth, birds, cattle, beasts, all swarming creatures that swarm upon the earth, and every man. Genesis 7, verses 19 to 21. So this is from P. Okay. 19 to 21. Let's see. 19 to 21. So this is from the P account, the priestly account. Okay. Only Noah was left, and those that were left with him in the ark, and the waters prevailed upon the earth 150 days. This is from Genesis chapter 7 again, verses 23 to 24. And this is from the Yahweh's account. So compare this and you compare this. Yeah, there's a difference here. You can see that there's a difference. Okay. Yeah, definitely the accounts look as though they explain each other, but actually they overlap. Okay, and they actually overlap, and there's a distinction between the two accounts. Okay. Now I'm going to just talk about this, and then I'm going to have to end the stream here. I think because he has been uh going on for too long. So I guess we'll be covering just chapter 7. All right. A close examination of the text reveals that the Yahwist or the J account knows only of the rain as a source of the waters of the flood, whereas the P account or the priestly account, in closer contact with the Mesopotamian tradition, speaks of groundwaters as well as rain. In addition, P, the priestly account, speaks of the windows of heaven being opened up. And this is not just a figure of speech, because for the ancient Hebrews, okay, who shared, especially after the exile, the Mesopotamian cosmology, in which they believed that the sky was hard, a kind of crystal, and above it were the waters of heaven. Okay. It will be remembered that at the time of the creation of the world, the waters of chaos were separated, by implication, horizontally. Opening the windows of heaven meant releasing this vast and overwhelming overhead ocean of water upon the sinning world. So the Mesopotamians believed that above the heavens there was a body of water swirling above the heavens. And if you open these gates of heaven, then all the waters from this mythical ocean from above the heavens will pour downwards and flood the earth. So this is how the Mesopotamians understand it in their cosmology. And yes, basically the J authors, the J and the P authors, the Yahwist and the priestly authors, basically they were influenced by this methodology. Okay, especially P, because P was particularly influenced by Mesopotamian methodology. Okay. None of the Mesopotamian versions discovered thus far makes use of this well-known cosmology, but instead sees the storms in terms of rain and a squall blown in from the Persian Gulf. This is really remarkable in view of the history of natural disasters in that land, generally riverine in nature, floods having very little to do with the scanty local rainfall. It would seem that the priestly account of the waters pouring from the heavens and welling up from the earth draw their inspiration from another Mesopotamian version of the story that is now lost to us. Okay, so yeah, so and then it goes on. This book goes on to talk about the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is very similar to the biblical account, by the way, I must say. Okay, I'm not going to read it here. Maybe we can talk about this another time. Okay. And then we see in the Babylonian version, the storm lasted 6 days and 6 nights, very similar to the Bible. Okay. And then, and also, the commentary here mentions that the chronology of the flood in Genesis is very confused. Okay. J states that it lasted 40 days. And after 2 or 3 periods of 7 days, the ship is grounded, which is in Genesis 8. However, P says that the flood lasted 150 days, which is in Genesis 7, and it took about another 150 days for the waters to subside and for the dry land to appear, which is in Genesis 8. According to Genesis 8, verse 4, the ship came to rest upon the mountains of Ararat. In the Quran, the mountain is called Judi, okay, Mount Judi. It's not Ararat, okay. And this is in Quran, Surah 11, verse 44. Okay. Now, yeah, the exact location of this mountain is unknown to us. Okay. The mountain was thought to be to the north of the Mesopotamia. Judi would be the most conspicuous mountain to the north of the Mesopotamia, familiar to the peoples of the early Near East. Mount Ararat is located far away across hundreds of miles of difficult and dangerous mountainous terrain. Judi would have been on the southern limits of the kingdom of Urartu that had its capital by Lake Van. Okay, so it's saying that here, basically, if I can summarize this, it means that Mount Judi would be more obvious place for the ark to land rather than Ararat, which was hundreds of kilometers away. Okay. And then in the Quran, okay, now let's talk about the Quran. We read that God had struck a similitude for the unbelievers, the wife of Noah and the wife of Lot, for they were under two of our righteous servants, but they betrayed them, so they availed them nothing whatsoever against God. So it was said, enter you too the fire with those who enter. Surah 66, verse 10. Okay. And then, however, in the Epic of Gilgamesh, the wife of Utnapishtim, who is the figure similar to Noah in the Epic of Gilgamesh, is seen in a favorable light and is granted immortality with her husband. In the Jewish tradition, the wife of Noah, Naamah, is expressly mentioned as being pious. Okay. However, there seem to be traces of a contrary opinion. The only Naamah mentioned in Genesis is the sister of Tubal Cain and a daughter of Lamech in the Canaan or the Yahweh's genealogy, which is in Genesis chapter 4, verse 22. In other Jewish traditional material, Naamah's beauty caused the temptation that led to the fall of the angels. In still another tradition, she is seen as the mother of the devil or the Hebrew Dajjal. She is also connected with deceiving dreams and corrupting music. So you can see that in the Epic of Gilgamesh and in the Jewish tradition and even in the Bible itself, the wife of Noah is seen favorably, whereas in the Quran, she is cursed and she will enter the hellfire. So you can see that the Quran definitely did not borrow the story of Noah from the Bible. So there's is a obviously contrasting difference between the two, right? So how is it you could claim that even though there is indeed the story of Noah in the Bible and in the Quran, that this means that you know this story was borrowed? I mean, the story in the Quran, the story in the Quran was borrowed from the Bible. So look at the nuance differences between the two, and the omission of details in the Quran from the biblical account, which clearly shows that that the Quran has its own narrative with regards to the story of Noah, and that even though the stories are similar, obviously there's a flood involved and there was an ark, and that people were being punished for the transgressions against the preaching of Noah. There are some details in the story of the Quran which is much more logical and much more in line with how things should have played out. Whereas in the Bible, there are so many embellishments and external influences, especially from the story of the Epic of Gilgamesh. So, in conclusion, I would say that the Bible was influenced by and may perhaps even copy some stories from the Epic of Gilgamesh. And the Quran has an independent narrative which was never reliant on the Bible. So yeah, so I guess this pretty much wraps up my live stream for now. Okay, the live stream has been going on for about 1 hour and 10 minutes, and there are 2 viewers watching this live stream. Hey, thank you very much for coming on and watching me giving this lecture, I guess. Yeah, wasn't expecting anyone at all, but hey, I got 2 people, and earlier there were about 4 or 5 people watching this live stream, so that's great. That's great. And yes, I guess I'll see you again in in a future live stream. Okay, so let me stop this for now. Yeah, so thank you very much for coming on. No one else is leaving any comments. I think there are people who are watching me, but nobody's leaving their comments. I don't know why. But anyway, yeah, I'm still grateful for your coming on. Okay. Hopefully, I'll see you again in the future. So, oops, I think I forgot to switch this on. Oh dear. Oh no, I forgot to switch this on. I should have switched this on, right? But yeah, I mean it's fine because oh man, my bad. Okay, never mind. It's all right. Anyways, thank you very much for coming to my live stream and watching this series. You can always play back to the beginning if you have missed. If you actually, if you missed the first part, you could actually go back and start from the beginning. And of course, I would encourage you to watch my previous two episodes in this series. The Bible studies in light, basically Bible studies in light of the Quran, episodes 1 and 2. So, in episode 1, I talked about the story of the creation, cosmology, and the fall, and basically the creation of Adam and the story of his fall, according to the Bible. And in series number 2, episode 2, I talked about the story of I showed the story of Cain and Abel, okay, the sons of Adam, according to the Bible, and contrasted it with the Quranic account of the story. Okay. And with that, thank you very much for coming on. If for watching me again, I do appreciate your presence. And if you like my video, please do give a thumbs up to the video. And yeah, please share this video to everyone whom you know. Okay, and hopefully I'll see you again in a future series. And I'm signing off now. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.